Hello, hello. Welcome to our author story time. I'm so excited for tonight's reading as we are going to not only meet an amazing author and learn about her work, but we're also going to be able to hear the story live. And so you're able to not only hear about the backstory, but actually hear the story read in the author's voice. If you are unfamiliar with who I am, my name is Jarima Gorham. I am the founder, executive director of Burst Into Books. And this author storytime series really was kicked off about 2 years ago and is a way for me to really just use our platform to continue to introduce families to amazing authors, being able to hear their backstories and then understand that there is such an array of books out here that are able to address so many different topics. And I really believe tonight's authors' books are going to be a great need, not only in our schools, but also in our families, and be able to see how we can use books, because I really believe we could use books as catalysts and starters for conversations. And so I'm so excited to talk about tonight's author and her book. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to actually introduce yourself as you share a little bit of your background as you are watching and tuning in. We are on Facebook and YouTube, and this will be live streamed, so you can always watch it later. This is an interactive time, so if you chime in as we're talking, feel free to put any comments or questions in the chat, and I will be sure to bring them up. But at this time, I'm going to hand it over to our lovely author.
Thank you so much. Well, hello, I am KS Collier. A counselor, a school counselor. I have worked with Chicago Public Schools for 24 years. 16 of those years, I worked with high school students, and I transitioned into the counseling role, and I started working with elementary school students. At that time, I realized that my communication skills with older students were a little more fluent, and I worked well with them, and I needed to find a way to communicate to the whole school. So my initial practice was to do a bulletin board with Bitmojis, and I would use the Bitmojis to communicate what emotions we were dealing with at that time. And my very first bulletin board was about managing your emotions. And so when I went back to my bulletin board, I realized that I had a book. And then I continued to work on another project and realized that I had a little bit more there. And I didn't even realize that I tapped into some other creativity along the way, whereas I was using a Bitmoji, and then I illustrated my own books myself, and pretty much had a team of friends and family that supported me, with the highlights being my daughter, my goddaughter, and another friend of mine who's also a photographer. They gave like initial input as to what I needed to change to stop being the high school teacher and to become more of a children's book author, and how I presented myself and how I delivered the information that I had, because there were a lot of things that I was still doing at a high school level, even when I wrote the material out for the drafts for the books. So that's my background. I am a parent of a grown daughter. She is now done with college and working, and just sitting back trying to wait and see what dreams she decides to pursue. Hopefully at some point, maybe this will be all I'm doing and I won't be working in a school at all. I'll be working on traveling, working with these books and developing more concepts, because there definitely is a need for the topics that I have stirring in my mind and have put on paper. So
I love it. So I want to talk about your writing process, but I want to first back it up to starting from a bulletin board, right? So
yeah.
even having that as the way you were communicating with kids, what allowed you to know that I'm going to start this writing process, but I want my first book to be about managing emotions? I know you said that's what you were using to communicate, but what stuck with you to make it that would be your first book?
Okay, so to dive a little bit deeper, what ended up happening was we were stay at home, and a lot of things were virtual. And I feel like I thrived in that space where I was able to find things and I had time to put them together. And I didn't know I was going to have such responsibilities to work with so many more students than I actually had access to when I was working in the building. But my principal put me in a position where she wanted me to lead our morning meetings. Gave me no idea what to do. And I was like, okay, I'll do what I want. So I started doing what I wanted, and everybody was like, oh, the morning meetings are fun. And we were laughing about things, and it just started the day really well. And I realized that I was running out of material. So my daughter was in college, and she was in a communications program, and she had background in film and working with all this production stuff. So I asked her, I said, how do I animate this? So I just started researching everything to animate my stories that I wanted to share with the school since I didn't have a bulletin board. And what I ended up figuring out was through my goddaughter, who had just written a book, was that I had a book that I needed to present. So it really started off as me trying to figure out a way to make it, small videos and things like that. And then when I realized I had a book, I was like, I have to go back to that. But that's kind of where the idea started to build on writing.
Yeah, and I love that you said that it started with you leading these morning meetings. So these are for adults, right? These are adults in this space. It wasn't. It was for the children.
It was for the families.
Oh,
It was for everybody. It was to start the day for the entire school, so the parents could see it, the
that's
teachers.
awesome.
So what I would do is any announcements, I would filter the announcement in. But the way I like to set it up was I started them off with music, either video, activity would come next, and then a report out on, possibly attendance or some other deliverables that were necessary for the day. And then the dean, he would pick up from there and it was almost like a little radio station. Like, okay, and I wouldn't say anything. I was just behind the scenes, like pushing all the buttons, and loved it. I just had everything set up, breathing exercises, everything that I didn't get a chance to do physically because I couldn't get into each and every classroom. So no, it was for everybody.
Oh, I love it. So it's cool because I feel like we're talking about your journey of becoming an author. So you were just creating this space for families and kids, and it just tends to see like this is something that's really well needed, right? And you talked about learning how to do the illustrations and being able to now like format this story. So when we're thinking about writing a book, so when I have people that listen in, it's like families who are looking for literature to add to their libraries. There's also aspiring authors, right? So hearing you makes us feel like this is such an easy process. Like I could just draw me some pictures, think about my concepts, and I have a book. But I know there are so many other little pieces, right? Like the publishing part of it, the marketing part of it. Like, when you embark to be an author, it's definitely more than just writing a story. So I would love to hear, once you knew you had a book, like what were some of those like hiccups or maybe things that you had to learn, because it led you to even, make another book, right? So how were you able to figure all those things out?
Okay, so in this case, the child became the parent, and I really leaned towards my goddaughter, my best friend, and my photographer. My best friend is just, you got it. Don't question it. Just do it. My daughter is like, okay, look, I need you to look at this again. My goddaughter is, yay, it's my god, mommy. Yeah, you can do it. You can do it. So I had all these different people that still wanted to see me succeed. So with my daughter, knowing how I speak and knowing that maybe sometimes I might not be clear on certain things that a child wouldn't understand. She's like, "Ma, that's a little too much. You got to break that down a little bit more." The first one, though, was because it was a bulletin board first. that was a little bit easier because all I had to do was take what I had said and then add the phrases and the rhyming and that part. With regards to making it approachable with the illustrations, I had to get comfortable with me being an artist. And I still have trouble saying artist. I feel more comfortable saying that I'm a creative because I don't feel like I have the skill down packed. But I had these sketches that I couldn't physically put together. I had some on paper, some on my iPad,
Mm.
and I had a vision. And so I knew what I wanted it to look like. And then when I submitted my manuscript to the publisher, which was the same publisher my goddaughter had, she had the background information about, oh no, that doesn't sound like what they told me. And, so we talked about that. And then she also has a background with early childhood. So when I set it up, I was like, I need both of you to read it. Let me know what I need to do. So a lot of my bigger problem was the artwork because I was not comfortable with saying that I was an artist and producing a quality piece for what I needed to do. But when I submitted it to the publisher, they were like, "Do you have more books?"
Mm.
I was like, "Really? Are you sure?" And they were like, "Yeah, they actually asked me for 3. They wanted to package me for 3. And I was like, I think I have 2, because I could think of another bulletin board that I was gonna continue to work with. But when I went back to do the second one, I had written it all the way out and I was ready to draw the images. And I had a conversation with my grandmother trying to share information about my daughter. And I just wrote about what was happening, not the physical conversation, but how this one person in our family fell in love with this other person in our family that we never expected to have this grand relationship. And I'm sitting there saying, I'm checking on you, but she's checking on her baby. So that one kind of started me to realize that I had when the butterfly met the ladybug.
Mm-hmm.
That out. Now, those illustrations were way easier for me to draw, but way more detailed because I had already done the process.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm having more trouble with finishing because I know the process and I know what I want and I don't want any mistakes and I don't want to go back and forth with the publishing. So, part of the creativity is slowed down because work and life is a little busier since everything is open back up.
Right.
But the ideas are still there. I have learned to practice jotting things down when I get a chance, opposed to waiting until I'm sitting still and trying to just focus on it. I just let it come to me when it does. So I feel like it's something that I've been ignoring. So I don't want to make it seem like it's easy. But the people who, when I actually published and shared it with them, they were like, "You wrote 2 books? Like, wait a minute. Why
Mm-hmm.
didn't you say anything?" I was like, I was working on it. I just didn't know how to express any of it. So like I'm still having trouble with marketing. that's the bane of my existence right now. The marketing piece is very hard for me. I've tried social media. I've tried these other things that weren't things that I normally did. So
Mm-hmm.
that's I mean I'm reaching, I'm growing, I'm trying as many things that I've been told will work to help promote. But as far as the writing piece, now it is just a part of what I do. And I really would like to have a real late start for work, like maybe 10 o'clock start. But because I work in a school, I'm supposed to be there early. That's my best time to write.
Yeah.
Time to write is in the morning. And I mean, I guess they've had studies enough to indicate that with student learning as well. But I'm more creative in the morning, and I'm more creative when I have time to just do it at my own pace. So summers, I'm hoping, our breaks. I hope in the spring we have a break that has sunshine, so I can
Mm.
sit and absorb the
Or you
air.
might have to go away. You might have to go out of town.
Oh, I have to go out of town.
Well, we just might have to do that because Chicago last April it was messing around, snowing around here. I don't
It
understand
was.
what was
It
happening. So you
was.
might just have to take a trip.
I might. And that's the problem. I need to be in my own space and kind of, have my mug with coffee in there and all that kind of stuff that people don't even think about is speaking to your mind at that time.
Yeah. So
Oh, thank you.
so I think the thing that you hit on, as Keisha just hit on, is that when we're talking about our writing process, the writing process is different for everybody, right? And just how do we best communicate? I love that you had a team of people, both
Yeah.
professional and just personal, who are able to say, like, this is your voice, mom, or this is what you need to say, or this is what we're hearing. And you need that cheerleader, you need that goddaughter that's like, come on, we got this. But I think the biggest thing is understanding that what works best for me may not work for somebody else. And how do we find that place of creativity? Because, as you spoke to, some of us are working full-time jobs, want to aspire to be authors. We don't have the luxury of just in the middle of the day going to a cafe and going to write, right? But it's important that we understand what our thing is. And so, as Keisha said, she's glad that you identified. She said she's a combo, so she can kind of write at
Yes.
at different points. And so, if you are just joining us, we are talking with author K.S. Collier and just talking about the background and the inspiration and how does she go from this very I just think things are divine, because if your principal never had you doing these morning meetings, you wouldn't have these books. So the fact that you were even put in that position of like, why? Because it led us to here, right? So it led us to you now being a two-time author and having these two books that you're able to offer and talk about. So we talked about the story and the pictures. The part that I love to talk about is just the title and book covers. And so we can show that, because that's just as, I think, important as the content. Because if you think about it, like album covers, book covers, that's what draws us in. So what you name it matters, and then the image that we first see. So let's talk about this first one. What had you land on manage your emotions? What does it say underneath there?
Before they manage you.
Okay, now. All right, that's why you called it that.
This is how it all got started.
But
Um,
let's talk about the book cover. What made you choose that image on the very front?
So again, I was learning about how I actually create. So with this particular image, this is one that I was able to do all by itself. Like it just kind of came out. But I was thinking about the fact that I wanted the image it actually resides on certain pages where you can see the little person is hooked to the puppet strings. And as you go through the book, the puppet strings start to break at different points. So this is actually one that I drew as a full image, and they just highlighted and enhanced the colors on the image for me. But this one is, I'm still creating, but these are my twins. It's a girl and a boy twin. And they are the base of my storybook, wherever it is. So everybody's in the book. My daughter's in the book. My goddaughter's baby's in the book. I have myself in the book as a counselor. There will be a teacher coming soon, So I'm building a story community through my books. But this one, for me, it just kind of came out because I knew I had the characters in there, and I just wanted to kind of give them different spaces as I developed the books. But the main thing was the puppet strings. And when I added the middle image to the pages, I wanted to show that as you get the coping skills or as you get the strategies, you are able to manage yourself. No one else has to do it. So that's how that book cover. And then, like I said, my photographer talked me out of using images that I would have preferred, which would have been black and white and dark colors. And, she was like, you have to show up. So I got a good talking to from that team of people. And then the other book, I just think that Afro Puffs are just the best thing ever. So I had created a different one where it was a rainbow and some other things, and my daughter was like, I feel like it kind of looks more like my goddaughter's image, her background. And I was like, okay, well then what could I do to kind of change the look of it? So this is the one of the twins. This is Skyler, and I decided to kind of have her in the image but not. And I saw a picture of I forgot who it was. I feel like it was Erica Badu. It was someone, and they had like a hat on and something else, and they were looking up. And so I was like, I think eyes are just like so important to everything. So I was trying to make sure the eyes captured kind of like a wondering. And then with the book and everything, knowing that this was a story, a tale of both of them, I wanted to kind of be like they were floating around the book. So and then the publisher came up with the script and everything, putting the butterflies on the letters and everything, and I really like that. But this is the original copy. It actually doesn't look as good as the print book.
Got you. Well, I just wanted to call out, since we've been talking, we have I'm much clearer headed in the morning as well. So people just sharing they are in agreement. Carlita, hey girl, she said she loved your title before they manage you. Preach.
Yeah.
And the idea of having a community, a story community, the continuation of this world you created. So I think that that's so cool, because even me hearing that now, when you read your story, I can see like, wow, you're letting us in your world. And so as you're giving us coping skills and giving us strategies, is really how you apply it in your own space. So I think that that's really, really great. So you all, we have a special treat, as she's talked about the book cover, the writing, the process. As we do each time we do these story times, we do a live reading with the author. And so she's actually going to read one of her books for us. And afterwards, we'll kind of talk about how that resonated with us. So if you are tuning in live, thank you. Share this, share it, share it. And we are about to jump right into our live reading.
All right. So I'll be reading Manage Your Emotions Before They Manage You. Give me 1 second. Let me put my glasses on, y'all. All right. And my dedication in here says, for those that kept my conversations focused on creating, for those that pushed me to try, encouraged me to start, and those that actually said I should finish this project, for those that inspired my spirit and continue to nurture my soul. A special thank you to my ladybug, my cheerleaders, and my sister friends for their patience, feedback, and support in navigating my own emotions through this chapter of my life. All right, manage your emotions before they manage you. You are in charge of you. Your mind will do what you tell it to do. Emotions can be powerful, but you can manage them if you remember to breathe deeply, count backward from 20, or practice balloon breathing to search for your calm. If that's not enough, there's more you can do. Your emotions can always be managed by you. Relax. Your body and your mind when you start to feel anxious. Try a simple stretch, yoga pose, take a short break, or just clear your mind and just think of nothing. Manage your emotions before they manage you. You are in charge of you. Your mind will do what you tell it to do. Emotions can be powerful, but you can manage them if you remember to. Pretend. You are in a cozy, safe space. Try it. It can help to take your mind away from a stressful place. Stressful space. If that's not enough, there's more you can do. Your emotions can always be managed by you. Watch your words. Don't say the first thing that comes to your mind. Talk to a mentor, a parent, or a teacher before speaking instead. Manage your emotions before they manage you. You are in charge of you. Your mind will do what you tell it to do. Emotions can be powerful, but you can manage them if you remember to stay positive. Replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts. Remember, your mindset keeps you from being upset. If that's not enough, there's more you can do. Your emotions can always be managed by you. Talk it out. Angry people make poor decisions. Select the safe choice is often the best decision. Be silly. A giggle can easily turn a frown into a smile. Having a sense of humor can help keep you calm. Manage your emotions before they manage you. You are in charge of you. Your mind will do what you tell it to do. Emotions can be powerful, but you can manage them. This will help you to become a better you.
I love it. Can we give her a round of applause? I love it. We had as people were listening and said exciting. I was waiting to see if you had another way you wanted to wrap that up. But I love the fact that you really just gave some like practical things. And I could see how you were able to utilize this with students. So can we talk a little bit about that before I share about my reaction? Can you
Yeah.
tell me what was the response from the families and the students that were getting these strategies that you were giving them throughout the year?
With the book or just in general?
I would
Like,
say maybe even if you have like an example of how one of the things you shared, someone maybe came back and said it was helpful, or just in general, how was it able to be a support?
I have a ton of them, but can I give you two?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the first one I'll start with one of my good friends. She has a son who she introduced the book to, and he nearly got in trouble because he was reminding his father that he should manage his emotions before they manage him. So that was it. I would love for her to tell the story, but that was I was like, oh no, I'm going to get him in trouble. But he was referring back to his book when he was having trouble with things at school. And so I was
Mhm.
really, and I mean, I know of him, but it really felt good to hear that from him. And then the second one that I would share was a big surprise to me. So not only was my principal, proud that I had the book and shared it with the staff and everything. But some of my colleagues really surprised me. My language arts teacher, I was really fond of her, everything, but I wouldn't have said that she would have promoted me the way she did. She
Mm.
actually read the book to the middle school, and I didn't know it. And she had purchased them, and we had talked about it. And she was like, I'm so excited, so proud of you. And I was like, thank you. But, then I was kind of like just in my own space getting started with the year. And I'm walking down the hallway and I had two kids approach me and they were like, Miss Collier. I'm like, what? They were like, so you wrote a book? Yeah. And they were like, I read it. And I'm like, okay, so what'd you think? I really liked it. I'm proud of you. So now I'm having all these students like ask me about the book and tell me that they saw it and they saw my picture, your picture's on the back of this book, and you did such a good job. And I'm like, what? Like the kids are telling me that. So it was like so hard once they realized I did this to hear their feedback in a good way though. Because I don't think I've ever had a student say that they were proud of me. So that was my return to work with, everything that everybody else was going through. I was on a cloud. I was just getting all this positive reinforcement from places that I'd never expected it. So those are the two top that I can.
Yeah, I love it. Carlita said this will be a great addition to an SEL curriculum. So I think that's awesome, right? Just being able to have additional reading resources that children can use. And just even in the example when you talked about the young man and his father, like I think it's so important. Working in schools, a lot of times, working with students when they quote unquote misbehave or say things, it's really about them not necessarily having the language to communicate how they're feeling in their moment. So it comes out in this way, right? And so if we're giving kids these tools, like for him, like, I'm realizing that, Dad, you need to manage your emotions before they manage you, because that's something that he probably he's taken in and he knows what that means now, right? Like in this moment, you're allowing your emotions to take over what you're trying to even say and do in this moment. So I think a lot of times as we are empowering, and I always tell us the parents, as we empower our kids, we also need to be open to understanding that the role of teacher and student is interchangeable when it comes to the kids, right? So it's times where our babies teach us, and it's times that we're teaching our babies, and we need to know if we want them to be advocates for themselves and be able to communicate what they're feeling, that we also need to be open to when maybe it's going to be something that causes us to have to be different.
Absolutely. And that actually happened with my daughter where I was editing the second book. There was a phrase that I wanted to use, and I wanted it was love on. And I wanted to refer to how the butterfly was loving on the ladybug. I can't remember the exact sentence, but the question I had to her, she said, you have to take it out. And I was like, that is a way to speak. That's how I would say it. I'm loving on you, And she was like, everybody's not going to understand it. And she told me to rewrite it. I rewrote it 3 times and she pushed it back to me and said, it says the same thing. It says the same thing. And I said, well, fix it for me. And she said, it's your book. And I was like, you're right. It is my book. You're right. But I needed her help and I could not undo it to save me. I mean, we were laughing about it, but it was really more like, that offer that you slide across the table and they slide it back to you. And you're like, no, that's not what I want, but just started laughing. I was like, oh man, like I can't be mad about it. She's being honest with me. There may be someone who reads it and doesn't understand. And she pushed it back to me like, is that what you want? And I'm like, no, it's not. So let me try it again. So we didn't compromise. I figured out a different way to write it, but I'll never forget that space of, I've listened to my daughter before. She's a really smart girl. But in that space, I was like, she's looking out for what's best and how this is going to work for what I wanted to do. She knows I don't want to fail with this project,
I love it. I love it. So what's next?
What's next? So right now, I am really trying to finish illustrations for a concept of 2 books that are built on music. And I'm not a musician. So I'm doing a lot of research and asking a lot of questions. And then in the book, the main character is related to the twins. You get to see the mom and the dad and the grandma in this book. And um, the second book is more about names. It's connected to that. It's kind of like I'm trying to develop it around all the complications I've heard with not just name calling, but chosen names, preferred names, not in the strictest sense, but having a little person still be called that nickname and they don't want to be called that name, or having the person who has a creative name and people messing up the name, so but it's going to be the same character, and I'm not really sure if I'm going to let the character stay in the same age range or not, but I'm trying to dive into some of the things that I've seen happen more so with our young men. Some of the things that you hear, like be still, don't do this, some of those things are going to come out in the book. Be responsible, but not telling them how to be responsible. So that's what's next. And if I could get myself together around drawing things that are not as abstract, then I would be completely done. But probably, I don't know, maybe like 30% done with the illustrations, and about 90% done with the manuscript, at least for one. So I'm trying to keep them. If they package me for 2, then I'm going to try to keep doing deals where I can package for 2. I am still looking for another option for publishing, because there's some things that you find out after you've done it that could work better and make more sense for you. So I am still looking for another publisher. So those are some things that I've been trying to do. And I tried to do that first, and now I realize, like, what if I find somebody? I don't even have it finished. So I'm trying to get 95% finished with both, where it's kind of laid out and mapped out first.
I love it. So if you are listening and you are a publisher, or if you know of a publishing company, please pass them this way so we're able to have options. And I just want you to know that I think maybe it's because I'm a boy mom. I love stories that highlight the experience for young men. But I truly do believe that there's so much about just, do our boys feel safe and celebrated in spaces? That's always been a big thing for me. Even before I was a mother, just being a teacher, I always saw just the difference. This really is a difference into like how much boys feel welcome in spaces, right? Like behaviors can be misinterpreted just because of the way that they may express themselves. And so I think just having a book that allows them to know that you are enough, who you are is fine, that we need to be able to, if anything, maybe rebuild the system that you're in, because in our education system overall, our young boys, especially our young Black boys and boys of color, tend to not hear their voice. So,
and they don't know how to express their emotions.
And they don't, because similar to what you said, they've been told, don't express, like sit down, be quiet, like that's bad. And it's like, okay, well then give me the tools to do something different. So
no, I totally agree. And that's kind of like, I don't want to say that it's a actual boy, but I do want to say it's a boy thing, in the sense that they are required to learn how to present themselves differently. If a girl cries, a girl can cry, but boys are more physical with things, and banging on desks and making funny noises and things like that. Those are the kind of characteristics that the character is going to have, and it's going to be accepted in one space and not another. And that too, I think, speaks to how we view young men all the time, and tell them to stand up and be, bigger than little people at a young age, and they have to open doors for parents and do all these wonderful things. But then when it's time for them to be a kid, they don't know how else to be in that space. And if they behave a certain way, let's say they're physical at home because they have older people around them. They're physical at school, they get in trouble. It's just it's so conflicting for them. I'm definitely going to delve into those characteristics, but I don't want to say that it is a boy or a girl, because I do think that some kids are kind of they share the same type of behaviors because they're treated in those roles of responsibility at home, if that makes any
It
sense.
does. It does. I mean, really a lot of it, I think like we're speaking to like with young men that it can be a little bit more pointed out and targeted, right?
Yes,
But both spaces, it's really about like your home life, right? And what you are expected to be in in all spaces, and not all the time what happens here is accepted in another space. So yes, I totally agree. So as we are coming towards the end, I wanted to just highlight that this author series that we've been doing for the last, this is now the fourth month, is highlighting authors that we have a part of our author circle, which are authors at which we have really rallied behind to promote and share their work and be able to just have all these different ways that we're able to share their amazing writings. And so this is one of the platforms among many things that we try to do to promote. And so if you have not visit our website and look under the author circle, you will see not only KS, but other authors that we have been supporting this year. And then I want us to also know that authors are inspired by authors. And so our closing question for tonight is the question I love to ask all of our guest authors. But what are some of your favorite books and authors that you maybe go to or have resonated with you over the years that maybe if people have not ever read or heard of, they can start researching on their own?
August Wilson,
I
playwright.
love August Wilson.
I
Yeah.
love August Wilson. I was able to meet him when I worked at DuSable.
Really?
I have signed copies of 2 plays. My mom has signed copies of 2 more.
Oh, that is
Oh my
amazing.
God, my favorite playwright is August Wilson. J.
Mm,
California Cooper,
mm,
great short stories, very creative, twisty work. Octavia Butler,
yep.
and they just did Kendrick. I don't know how I feel about it, but it's still good. But so creative, so early on with the science fiction. I love J.K. Rowling.
Mm-hmm.
That creativity was amazing to me. I wanted to know, like you're asking this question, every time I read a book, I wanted to know, what did she read when she was a kid? Like, how
Mm-hmm.
did she come up with all these different characters and all these different things that connected to things that you could recognize, even if you weren't in the same little tiny town that she was describing, or never had any exposure to the wizarding world? You were like, I want to be there. Like, I love those authors. Those are my tops. And those are my most recommended when people are reading. I'm like, but did you read this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
always back on that. And I'm so happy that some of the people um, are going to be introduced to Octavia Butler. I just wish they kept it in the context of the time frame that she wrote it in, because then that makes it even more amazing, because she wrote it before all these things were actually accessible. So how did she know? Like, so those are my favorite.
Yeah, I
And
think,
I
to your to your point, I think whenever they try to modernize things, it definitely can take away from the originality. But I think that what that speaks to is that these works are timeless. The fact that her story has been like recreated in so many different ways,
don't.
even after her passing, just tells a lot about just how our words live on beyond us, and is going to wrap somebody into her writing, and then they'll lead them to her other writing. So
I
you've
hope so.
named some amazing people. I mean, August Wilson plays are just
I've
amazing. I've been
seen
able to see
all
it.
but 3.
I
I'm
seen
a
I
big
think
fan.
I've seen two. I think I've only seen two or three. And so even whenever I see, like, I think at one time the Goodman was doing like a series of his different plays. But I just think that even to that, right, just being able to tell stories in such a real way. You felt connected with those
Yes. I
characters.
would love to get dialogue the way he does. You know how these people
Mhm.
speak, and you're reading it, and you would never have that accent. He was so gifted and talented in doing that. And as you know, if you are familiar with the plays, a lot of people that have started that we see now, like Denzel Washington, um, not Morgan Freeman. I'm about to call the wrong person's name, but a lot of the people that we see that are actors that are very popular today were in his plays on
Mhm.
Broadway. That's how they started. His work are they're all just amazing. I have nothing to complain about anything that I've read, and they're quick because they're plays. They're like possibly less than 100 pages,
Yep.
but you get a lot. And I can't name a favorite, but a few that I like. Piano Lessons, Joe Turner's Come and Gone. And then for Octavia Butler's would be The Kindred and Parable of the Sower. J. California Cooper would be Peace of Mind, The Matter is Life. Heavy, 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 heavy stuff.
Mm.
But even as she writes it, you're able to laugh at the end. You're able to connect with the characters. And she was another one that she wrote a lot of stuff, and I don't think people are familiar with her. People have slept on her for a while.
Well, what I will say is if you all were unfamiliar with any of the names that were spoken this evening, get familiar, get in tune, go to a play, grab a book. I think this is the perfect time. I think a lot of times when we are talking about Black history and just what that looks like, I think that we have been able to, from the beginning of time, understand the power of words. And so one way that I think that we're able to really celebrate Black history all year long is through books and not knowing that it has to be designated into this one space. But if you read a story by any one of these individuals, it takes you to history, it takes you to a time period in which you're able to understand maybe some of those struggles that we see that our forefathers went through. So get a book, read a book, go to a play, figure out how you can become immersed into this amazing work. So I just want to say as we're closing out, thank you so much, KS. This has been awesome to hear your backstory, to hear the motivation, to hear just your willingness to take a risk, right? Because this was a space in which you were not familiar with, you were not even embarking on being an author, but it really found you. And so if you are also watching this tonight and you have a story on your heart and you feel as if there are just divine things happening that are leading you to tell your story. I think everyone has a story. Now, whether we share it and publish it or whatever the case may be, we all have something that we're to add. And so I pray that you will step into that and take the risk and take the steps and know that the people in your life around you are there to help you get there as well, as we saw tonight's reader talk about. So if you have not got her book, then we're going to close there. Can you share with everyone who's watching the best way to purchase your book, and then we will close out our story time.
Okay, so the best way to purchase both of them are on Writers Republic. They are also available Barnes and Noble online, Amazon online, Target online. You can find them there, and there's two other indie bookstores that you can find them on. But if you type in the title, "Manage Your Emotions Before They Manage You," and then KS Collier, it should pop up with Writers Republic, and the same applies for When the Butterfly Met the Ladybug. When you type it in, it should pop up with Writers Republic, and you can purchase there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this time. Thank you for those who joined us this evening. Please share this live because it is going to be stored here, not only on our YouTube, but also our Facebook. And so please continue to share because, as mentioned earlier, I think that this book definitely should be a part of classrooms. It should be part of SEL. It should be part of even what we use in our home. I think giving it to our kids is very short and simple strategies which they can remember when they are in a jam, or if they feel like, hey, my emotions are high. If you are in schools, if you're an educator, I'm sure you have felt this. Even as a parent, there's times when my son, I'm like, I know that something's going on, but maybe it's just you don't know how to communicate it. I think giving kids books is a way for us to share lessons in a way that they can be a little bit more receptive. Maybe speaking to them may seem a little triggering at the time, but reading a book can be a little bit more calming, and it gives them strategies of what they can do better next time. So purchase, support. And until next time, you all have an amazing evening.
Thank you.
Bye.